So here's the analogy that I like to think of when I'm talking about behavior and reinforcement. The set of behaviors that an animal has, their behavioral repertoire, can be thought of like a set of music playlists, like your iPod, back when that happened. That was a thing. These playlists are automatically sorted by the number of times that you've listened to each song. So the songs that you crank on repeat are going to be higher up on the playlist than the ones that you only listen to occasionally. So you can think of those numbers of plays like the number of times the behavior in the playlist has been performed and reinforced. So that means they've done the behavior, that's the song. It has been followed up with something that the animal will work for, that they like. They are willing to behave to get it. That's going to add another tick onto that play count. So, there's a lot of things you can do with this playlist analogy. When we talk about behavior, it only happens in context. We behave because stuff is happening around us. So every animal, us included, has a general behavioral repertoire. You can think of this as like the all songs playlist. And then there's mini playlists that correspond to more specific contexts. So, when a behavior happens and is reinforced, its reinforcement history, which you can also think of as its play count, increases both in the all songs playlist, in the general repertoire, and in the specific context in which it occurred. So we can think of the context something like, okay, when guests come, the animal's going to do certain behaviors. When the cat is in the cat tree, the dog might choose from a certain subset of all of the behaviors that it knows. When it's relaxing in the living room, theoretically, the animal is not going to be trying to run an agility course, if that's in his general repertoire. So there's all of these important subsets that are interrelated. So in a certain context, let's say when guests come, the animal will pull from its general behavioral repertoire, its general all songs playlist, and if that behavior is reinforced in that context, it is now added to that playlist at the bottom because it's new. So it's not going to be up high since it's only had one possibility to be reinforced. So here's an example. The behavior that this dog is exhibiting is sitting next to the couch. We can assume that in its life, this dog has sat next to the couch before. So that behavior is in its general repertoire. But maybe he hasn't sat next to the couch when a guest comes through the door. So if the dog sits near the couch when a guest comes through the door, and that sitting is reinforced, then sitting next to the couch will become an option for the dog to do the next time a guest comes through the door. Now, this new behavior into the specific context's playlist will automatically go to the bottom of that playlist because it only has a very small reinforcement history in that context. So, in the future, the animal isn't very likely to offer that behavior on its own the next time guests come over, since there are other behaviors that have been reinforced so many more times. Jumping up on the guest, for example. When we see an animal performing a behavior multiple times over and over within the same context, it's our job as trainers to try to analyze what is reinforcing that behavior. Now, reinforcement can come from three general origins. Number one, from us intentionally, like we give the dog a treat because we're in a training session. From us unintentionally, like we might turn towards the dog and say something to them, and that's attention, but we're not trying to reinforce the behavior. And from all the other stuff that happens in the environment. And so we're working against all the different possible sources of reinforcement that are out there if we want to promote certain behaviors intentionally. This phenomenon applies to behaviors that we like and we want to continue to reinforce intentionally, and also behaviors that we don't like so much. It's understandable how we can make sitting next to the couch stronger. We give the dog a cookie every single time it sits next to the couch when the guest comes. But how can we use reinforcement to deal with undesired behaviors? It's definitely possible. So currently, going back to this when guests come playlist, jumping up on the guest is the undesired behavior. Currently, it's the most likely behavior to happen the next time this context comes around because it's got a play count of 294. It's probably been reinforced by the guest accidentally petting the dog when it jumps up on them, or saying, "Hi, it's so nice to meet you. Oh, you're so cute." We've all seen that happen a million times, right? We don't want that to happen, but it does. And that's reinforcing the jumping up on the guest behavior every time it happens. But if we install a management setup to prevent any more jumping from happening in the future, that will keep the number of accidental reinforcements or playing of the undesired behavior as low as possible, so that we can intentionally reinforce the desired behavior that we've chosen enough so that it overtakes the play count of the undesired behavior, therefore making it the most likely behavior that the animal will offer in that context the next time. So we're trying to tamp down the accidental reinforcement of any behavior we don't want to see, and then we are piling on the reinforcement to the behavior that we would rather happen so that it creeps up the playlist and then becomes number one.